Alright, let's do some fun stuff. We'll have a look at some formatting now. And I'll take you through two different types of formatting. The first is just overall look and feel of your worksheets. And then later we'll have a look at actually formatting individual or groups of cells, which will control how you actually display the data itself. So the first thing is to have a look at overall worksheet formatting. So you can see that in this workbook, I've just got some data here, and it's not amazing. It doesn't look anything special. It's fine. The important thing to note is when you have a lot of data, one of the easiest things you can do is to actually format it properly, and that will automatically help make someone's life easier when they can actually see what they're supposed to be looking at. So in this case, what we have here is just some random data I made up. So we've got dates in column A, and then we have purchase values by 4 warehouses. It could be shops, it could be family members, whatever. I've just made these up. First thing you'll note is in the date, you'll see a lot of hashes or pound signs, and that's because our column isn't wide enough for the data we have in there. So there's a number of things we can do. So we can change the font size, or generally what you want to do is expand your column to be big enough, or actually format your data to be small enough for the cell. What we'll start with is just changing the size of our column. So what you can do is just, if you hover over any column divider, that's these lines here, your mouse will change to this sort of arrow, and if you hold on, it will show you the width of your actual column at the moment, and you can just drag and leave wherever you want it, or you can double click and it will automatically adjust to the optimal width. What you can actually also do, if you want to be a lot more specific, is right click on any column, or you can select multiple columns, but let's click on this column, go down to column width, and then input a value here. So we've got 10 here, let's put in 12, and you'll see it's expanded slightly. Perfect. Okay, the next thing you'll note is the same for our warehouses. What you can actually do is grab all of them and just double click and it'll expand. But what you'll note here is, because here purchase values by warehouse is in one cell, this cell is a lot bigger, or this column is a lot bigger than the other 3. What we can do is we can find the value by just clicking here. It says 11.86, and just right click on here and just put in 11.86, and now all of our warehouses are exactly the same width. Perfect. Here you probably want to put purchase values by warehouses over and across all 4 warehouses. There's multiple ways of doing that. What most people tend to do is just grab this and go to merge cells, and you'll see it's merge these 4 columns and these 4 cells as one cell, and centered the value, which is perfectly fine. The better way of doing it is to actually not merge the cell itself, but if you select these 4 cells, right click and go to format cells, or the shortcut for this is Control and 1. And if you press that, you will see that a new pop-up box will come up, which will allow you to change alignment options of that cell. So in this new pop-up box, I'll just move it here. You'll see there's an alignment tab. When we click on that, in horizontal, that's what we want to do. There's different options, and there's an option which not many people tend to choose. It's called center across selection. Let's just select that and click on OK, and you'll see that it's centered the title across, but there's actually, all of these are individual cells, and the data only lives in cell B1, which is what we want. Great. Okay, so the other easy thing we can do is just change fonts and sizes of fonts like you would in any other Office program. So by default, Office will use the Calibri font at size 11. You can change this in the options, or obviously if you want to just change it for a worksheet, you can just do it manually. So I'm going to press Control A. It will select my whole worksheet, and then go here and let's do Arial, and I'll change it to size 10. That's fine. And generally you want to have the column headers as bold, so we'll change that. Change this to bold as well. Oops, in B1 it will change this to bold as well. And then again, let's just make this slightly bigger and get the width, which is 12.14, and we'll change the column width here. We'll change it to 12.5 just to make everything nice and neat. And that already looks a lot better. The other thing you can do is add, so this is just overall spreadsheet or worksheet formatting. You can also change the height of rows, so we can change this to be a lot bigger if you need it. You can again do the same thing by selecting multiple rows, and you can then change the height of all of them together. So you can see that I've expanded the height of all of them, and that already looks a lot neater. You can also do something called wrapping the text. So for example, warehouse 1, if you wrap the text on here, it doesn't do anything. But if I now make this smaller, you'll see that the text goes in multiple lines. If I uncheck this wrap text option, you'll see that the text actually just disappears off the side. Not what we want. I'm just going to undo this 2 times. And we're back to where we started. Now within each worksheet, you can then do additional changes, like changing the look of the individual worksheets. I'm going to go more into data type in the next section, which will look at how to show currencies with currency symbol and decimal places and so on. But here we'll look at how to actually add borders and shading and things like that to the cell, which is all very easy. So there's again multiple ways of doing this. So let's say we wanted to show off this as a whole table. We can just add a border there, and the easiest way to do that is by going on this button here. This is your borders button. By default it has the bottom border selected, but if you click on this drop down, you'll get a lot more options. So I like this outside border option, so let's select that, and you'll see that there is now a line on the outside of this, which is great. What I actually want to do before this is to change the background color so we don't see any of these grid lines. There's multiple ways, but again, the easiest one is just to select everything in your spreadsheet. So I can press Ctrl A to do select all, and you'll see that I've selected the whole spreadsheet. Now if you click on the paint bucket here and drop down to white, you'll see that you can't see the grid lines anymore, which is fine. That's great for us. The grid lines don't get printed anyway, but it's just something to make your spreadsheets look a bit cleaner when you're looking on the screen. So now it looks a bit odd because we have nothing separating the headers from the actual data itself. So let's do that. We'll add a little box around here by double clicking. So we've done that, and then we'll do the same thing here. And then what I actually like to do is let's merge these. And just add a table there. So we've got date here and then warehouse and stuff. Great. Now let's select these boxes here, and we want to have borders inside of each of our columns. So we can select it here. We can either click on all, which is great, or if you want to have a lot more control, you can again press Control and 1, or go to right click and format cells. And in this box that pops up, there's an option for border, and this gives us a lot more sort of fine-tuning options. So you can have thicker borders if that's what you needed, or maybe dotted lines. So let's try a dotted line, and you can just select a line here, and you see it's gone dotted in the middle. That's all we need. And maybe let's have them across as well. And you can also change the line color. So let's have something that's just sort of off-white. Let's just choose this option. And just right click, just click again, click OK, and you can just see faint dotted lines. Actually, yeah, that's okay. We'll leave it as that. We'll make this line slightly darker, and we'll just actually have that as a solid line. There we go. So it's already looking a lot better. What we can do is actually let's add lines in the inside here. That's great. What we can do is introduce some color here as well. So let's make the purchase values by warehouse. Let's make this yellow because we want it to stand out. So we can just select all of these cells, and again you can either go to cell format options, press Ctrl+1 or just use the paint bucket here. So let's do that because it's the easiest. Let's select a yellow, which we have here. And you can see Excel actually gives us a live preview of what it's going to look like. So let's just select the yellow, it's fine. There we go. What we also want to do is actually make this bigger. So let's just change this to 14. And we want to have it sort of centered vertically within the column or within the row. So that's this button here. Oops, sorry, it's not that button there at all. Because we haven't merged this, we'll have to center this again. And we can do that by alignment and center across selection. There we are. And the last thing we'll do is actually change the color of the warehouse column. So let's just change it to something that's a light gray. So we'll change something like this. Now we can do that individually. I want to make every odd warehouse gray and every even one we'll leave as it is. So we can do that either by changing it manually here, or we can use the format painter. So the format painter is here, and what it does is it allows us to apply formatting from one cell or a selection of cells across another cell. And this includes any conditional formatting, something we'll talk about in later lessons. As well as any data value formatting. So if a cell is set to display currency symbols, for example, it'll copy that across as well. What you can do is just select the range of cells you want to copy and click the format painter. If you click it once, it'll become a bit indented and it'll become yellow. And what we can do is just click where we want to copy the formatting to. So in this case, it'll be warehouse 3. I click here. You'll see that it's now colored those columns as well. That's great. What you can also do is actually double click the format painter button, and that will lock it in action. So normally when you just click it once, it'll apply the formatting, then it will just get rid of that formatting from your system. But if you double click it, you can lock it, so I can copy it multiple times. I'll just show you an example here. And if you just press escape, you can get out of it. I'm going to undo those last 3. So that looks fine. We'll add a border at the end here. And there we are. There's a final data table with a lot of formatting applied. So already that looks a lot neater and a lot more meaningful than what we had to begin with.